Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to be here. Final Four. A lot of things out there in the world that are fun. It is a Friday, so fun things will be covered. And yet I have to start with a lot less fun topics because they're the kind of conversations that need to be happening every single day, at least when it comes to what's going on at the border. This is a conversation that's coming in and out of, I think, our collective consciousness. There are other things that take us away from that conversation. Some, I think, on purpose. I think President Biden, along with everybody else, is trying to find other things to talk about. And some probably deserve as much attention. This report last night from the New York Times about Matt Gaetz is a little disturbing, to say the least. And there's certainly going to be more information about that. That actually helps explain a conversation he'd had with Tucker Carlson earlier this week. And I have audio to play of that. But I'm not going to get distracted by those other topics first. I'm going to keep covering the border and having conversations about what's going on there because it's important. There's a lot of things that are important in this world. And to me, this is one of the biggest ones, especially after the video that I assume a lot of people have seen of two little kids. These are 3 and 5-year-old children being thrown over a wall, a 14-foot high wall at a border, and dropped on the ground. Both of them, I guess, are okay. Both of them got treated at a hospital. But this is the latest in a line of ways in which people are trying to get children, unaccompanied minors is what they're called, into the United States. And this is dangerous for the kids. I'm not having a conversation where I have to dive into a bunch of different other areas to convince you that this is something we need to look at harder. It's dangerous for children. And for this to exist where maybe there's some sort of encouragement or some sort of blanket statement that, kind of contradicts anything else you might hear from the White House because they're letting children in. And obviously, if you've seen photos or video now of these detention centers, these areas where they're holding the influx of kids, the surge of children, which I guess even AOC had a problem with the word surge, and I can play that audio too in a bit. But here, first I want to play audio from the press secretary talking about this, Jen Psaki, because I really think everyone misses the point that it's safer for children to have a deterrent, to have something in place that stops the behavior itself. This is why we make things like drugs illegal. This is why we tell you to put a seatbelt on when you drive in it, when you are in a car. This is to deter bad things to prevent bad things from happening. The same would be true of, a wall, maybe. But here, let's hear some of this audio of how the press secretary handles the question. What I love is the second half of what I'll play, because after it's sort of identified between her and the member of the press asking the questions that they disagree, her next move was to try to just get to the root of why he's asking the question, which is hilarious, because the question has validity, even if the guy asking it has an ulterior motive. It doesn't matter what he's asking the question for. It still has value. You can't avoid it by yelling at the guy asking it.
And then on immigration, has the White House considered beefing up border security now that there is video of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old being thrown over the wall in New Mexico?
Beefing up border security.
There's video now of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
I've seen the video, and I think any of us who saw the video were incredibly alarmed by the steps of smugglers, ones that we have been quite familiar with, that we've spoken out about our concerns about. As Secretary Mayorkas said, the inhumane way smugglers abuse children while profiting off parents' desperation is criminal and morally reprehensible. The president certainly agrees with that. And these kids, I believe, were rescued by individuals who are working at them.
Okay, I heard the answer. Good answer. Obviously, it's bad to have kids, have dangerous things happen to them and whatever else happens to them while trying to get across the border in the United States. What are you going to do to stop them? What's the deterrent? What's the plan? And this is where the conversation devolves into, hey, why are you asking this question? As opposed to answer the question.
Border.
Yes, but they still got close enough, as you guys are talking about addressing root causes in the region, for a smuggler to throw them over a wall into the desert. And I'm just curious what the White House is doing to stop that from happening. And
are you concerned more about the kids' safety, or are you concerned about...
It doesn't matter. This part of the question, it doesn't. Are you, sir, why are you asking? Are you trying to get me in trouble? Is this a gotcha question, it doesn't matter. It's still valid.
Kids getting in, or tell me more about your concern here.
Kids' safety is, as you just mentioned, the main concern.
Well, of course it is, which is why I'm often surprised by some of the line of questioning in here. But
why? I don't get this. I assume that the press secretary's job is hard. I assume that a lot of jobs in this world are hard. But when you start to be, and I'm not saying that this is a one-sided complaint. I'm not trying to just throw Democrats under the bus here. Obviously, we can look back to some of the ways in which these interactions went in previous administrations, say, all right, it's the same thing. I don't get the press secretary. What you have to do that job well is maybe have like a full-time meditation expert there with you right before you walk to the podium to get you into some Zen-like state where you are the most calm, the most collected, being whatever it is that she's being back, being, a little bit disrespectful is the word I'm going to choose to say in the questioning back and forth with a reporter. It just hurts you. It just looks dumb to me. And more importantly, as you'll hear as I play the last bit of this audio, because I want to play all of it, doesn't answer the question. The question goes unanswered. And that's another thing. I think even Saturday Night Live made a joke about this last weekend. The border situation is a very difficult problem to solve, and one in which you don't want to see a bunch of kids in, holding cells or in centers or plastic environments, which is what I think they're in now with the same blankets, the same tinfoil-esque looking blanket that you saw from past administrations. If you go look at a video taken recently up online from some of these centers that are holding a lot of people that are waiting, for the next steps in their process, it looks very similar to what was a public outcry a few years ago. And that's also something that doesn't really make sense to me, is this topic is opening, my conversation with you today because it's tremendously important, and yet it's not covered at all the way that it was just a few years ago. If you agree or disagree with the guy in office, that's fine. You live your life. We're all Americans. We all get to vote for who we want to vote for. But you can't ignore problems because the guy you like is in office. You can't say, all right, this was a problem. Now it's not. Now it's no big deal. Because there's not a great solution other than deterrence, better deterrence. If you can get close enough to a wall that exists now to throw a kid over it into a desert, maybe you have to have a second wall. Maybe there's got to be a two wall and some space, environment here, kind of like what they were building in parts of California until they stopped that. Now there's just giant holes. But here, I'll play the last little bit of audio because just to me, when you start to question the reporter or question the desire for the question in itself and then completely ignore answering the question, you're doing a disservice to everybody involved.
I will say that our concern and our focus is on sending a clear message to the region that this is not the time to come. You should not send your kids on this treacherous journey, that these smugglers are preying on vulnerabilities in these communities. There's a lot of issues and steps we need to take to address root causes. So, of course, our concern is for the safety of these kids. These Border Patrol agents who save these kids deserve our thanks and our gratitude for ensuring their safety.
They do. And sending the strong message. They call him Grandpa Joe or Papa Joe, or I don't know what you want to call him. But because sometimes he sort of behaves as though he's our grandfather, the country's grandfather. And if that's all this is, a message to other countries, don't come. Don't try to cross. Are we going to let you in? Yeah. If you're an unaccompanied minor, are you going to get in? Yeah. That's, we're not changing policies or making any other sort of things, in the area to prevent you from coming. But don't do it. That's not going to work. Begging people to not do something. This. Anyone who has a kid, I don't have any children. I have, nephews and nieces, though. If you tell them not to do something, odds are if they want to do it anyway, they're going to try to do it anyway. That's how that works. You got to do more than just say no with a strong voice. All right, this is Craig Collins filling in. A lot more Chad Benson Show coming up.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I discussed earlier in the show, and we'll certainly talk about, again, what's happening at the border, because it is a conversation we need to be having on a daily basis until there's a solution to a problem in which people are throwing 3- and 5-year-olds over a wall and just hoping for the best. That's a danger to the children. That needs to be fixed. There are other conversations out there that distract from that. Some have merit. Some probably have less merit. Two of the bigger ones being discussed right now is the voting change in Georgia, and then also this story that broke last night from the New York Times about Matt Gaetz, the representative out of Florida. He and another politician, I guess, are indicted and being investigated by the Justice Department. The other person is indicted. Matt Gaetz not so far. Let me correct that. These are, I guess, involving some receipts that might have been located on something called a cash app. I guess this is a mobile payment app. This payments for sex with women, and more specifically, what's, I guess, the most the biggest thing of interest to the investigators, and certainly something that I guess Gaetz has already denied. But there may or may not be proof that we'll find out more about in the future as to whether or not one of the women that was paid for these types of activities was also underage, 17. There's gifts and other things that might have been exchanged. All of this coming out with the New York Times saying that they have proof of some of these things. So we'll see if that proof ever materializes in the public eye. And yet the fact that an investigation is going on and that there is a politician that's embroiled in this, someone who has been vocal at times, and now there's been a lot of audio being played that seems to, really demonstrate a different. There's also this report out there. I'll say this last thing because I do want to talk about this story, but I also want to move on because right now what we have is reporting on the idea that there's a bunch of proof, and yet we don't really have all the proof yet. So it's the kind of thing you have to talk about in those terms when you do a job like my job. You can't come on the air and say that there is proof when you haven't seen it. You have to get to the point where all this is shared in a public space for us to talk about it more. But there is also a story that he used to show photos of women to other members of Congress, other politicians, and he would brag about the fact that he had slept with said women. So that, if that winds up being true too, means this is a certain type of human, and that certain type of human, he's, I don't know, they've brought up more things about his history, his DUI, what have you. So we'll see how much of this information winds up being completely confirmed in the world of fact, which is important. We need to focus on facts in our world, but it's very disturbing, to say the very least, and something that certainly distracts, I think, from the other conversations that we have on a daily basis. When you start to find, issues with certain politicians, and then that becomes the dominant conversation, we forget some of the important topics that we also need to talk about, and that's a shame. It's a shame that our society is so much more interested in salacious and individual stories than it is maybe dangerous things that are happening on a much broader spectrum, certainly in the case of what's going on at the border. Also, Georgia's SB 202 law. Georgia would like to try to find a way to make voting, in their opinion, I think this is me speaking for a bunch of politicians, as valid as they possibly can. And here's the thing about laws like this, and I know that it's been attacked. I have Stacey Abrams' audio I can play where she says, please don't boycott Georgia, even though I get it that people hate this law. Here's the thing. A lot of Americans believe our last election was fraudulent. There's a lot of people in Georgia who believe that some of the other elections that took place in that state were not on the up and up. So there's got to be a way to address those concerns for voters, to give them a law. These are voters who believe that maybe elections are not, completely transparent like they should be, and create an atmosphere where we wouldn't have that fear anymore, where people wouldn't have that, but also create an atmosphere that's fair to all voters. That's part of the goal, in my opinion, in any kind of additional laws that get passed to change the way the voting process works. You want to address the fact that many Americans believe, even after proof has been demonstrated, that it was not fraudulent. I do not believe the election to be fraudulent. I should say that to make sure you're aware. I think I was told on Twitter one time after a show I filled in on here that I was promoting the idea that the election was fraudulent. I've never done that. I've never done that on any of the radio places I've been. I absolutely believe that our last election was not fraudulent, and any of the things that may have happened that may have, gotten some votes in or out incorrectly would never have impacted the overall income, if there ever was an error, by the way. But these kind of laws, I think they're designed in part to try to answer those questions that some voters have. Is it working exactly as intended? We don't know. We actually haven't seen it even used yet, but there's a call to boycott. And here, I think I have just enough time. Let's hear from Stacey Abrams just a bit. The background audio, really weird, the music they chose during her statement.
I understand the passion of those calling for boycotts of Georgia following the passage of SB 202. Boycotts have been an important tool throughout our history to achieve social change. But here's the thing. Black, Latino, AAPI, and Native American voters whose votes are the most suppressed under SB 202 are also the most likely to be hurt by potential boycotts of Georgia. To our friends across the country, please do not boycott us. And to my fellow Georgians, stay and fight, stay and vote.
Why is that the music? I don't even care about the message at some point because the music is like so weird. It's elevator music that's a little bit too upbeat for her to talk about how people all don't have IDs, and some people who need IDs, maybe in certain communities, and can't get them easily, are the ones who are going to be most impacted by the But why pick that music? I have, I guess, a problem with the editor or the producer of this video more so than what Stacey Abrams is saying. Although there's this assumption that this SB 202 law is going to have detrimental impact on certain communities, and that's the reason it was passed. And part of it is just because of an idea that you need an ID to vote. You got to have an ID to have us know that you're the person. You know, it's tricky. There's a lot of tricky things that happen here, and yet there are a lot of people who are worried that some votes that came in the mail weren't totally on the up and up, and this would be one way to take away that concern. Just my opinion, but more importantly, what is that music playing in the background?
Black, Latino, AAPI, and Native American voters whose votes are the most suppressed under SB 202 are also the most likely to be hurt by potential boycotts of Georgia. To our friends across the country, please do not boycott us.
Please don't boycott us. And then here's some uplifting music to play you out. I feel like it really could crescendo at the end there. I don't know. I gotta talk to somebody. I'm going to send a message. Just, get the audio to match the sentence that you're saying. Or maybe I just play that audio the rest of the show. We'll figure it out. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. A brand new group popped up on my Facebook. It's kind of cool. The idea from Breakthrough Ideas is that it's a nonprofit policy advocacy network that is advancing the causes of peace, prosperity, and freedom by highlighting the virtue of taxpayer-centric and liberty-centric policy and the ways in which they benefit all members of the community. I have co-founder of Breakthrough Ideas, Kathleen Murphy, joining me right now. Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. How are you?
Great. Thrilled to have you on. The first thing, why is a nonprofit like yours necessary in the current environment we're in? Why is it a need of ours as a society to have people willing to talk about things that maybe aren't being covered in the daily news on a daily basis?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's important. We come from a more taxpayer-centric conservative perspective, and I think that in general you hear voices getting shut down a lot, and so it is, I think, important to stand up and say, hey, I'm a conservative, without having to go really far or be say things that are extreme and just off-putting to people.
Sure.
What we wanted to do was also, because we have a digital platform as part of it, but what our focus is, the suburbs. So we felt like we had run a congressional race in the suburbs of Cook County, and we felt like this is sort of where parties they overlook the suburbs because they don't build infrastructure as aggressively there as they do in the city of Chicago. So, and the Republican Party certainly hasn't built infrastructure in the city of Chicago, but in the
Sure.
suburbs, it's gone. So we wanted to build these networks out online using the online platform, and then we have a speakeasy group that meets Tuesday nights where we bring together local activists. So we have about a group of 200 people every week that we reach out to about this. Then there's a youth program that we also do that meets Friday nights. So we're building
So
those, and then
let me focus a little bit more on the idea, and this is certainly one that happens in a lot of cities throughout the United States, not necessarily just in Illinois and in Chicago, where sort of the thinking of the big city dominates a lot of the way in which the local news organizations cover stories, the way in which you hear about maybe the main topics that are at the forefront of so many people's minds. Why is it so important to focus on the suburban areas of these big cities and have conversations that are different and conversations that are, to say in a certain way, more inclusive as far as the broader range of ideas and reactions that come from some of the biggest stories of the day? There's things like what's going on at the border that are just covered so uniquely depending on who's in power and what the bigger cities feel about those sort of things. So talk about that, why the suburbs is such an important focus.
Well, the suburbs decide elections. I mean, you saw in the presidential election in the Senate race in Georgia, you saw it was Gwinnett County, which is a suburb of Atlanta, which was one of the ones that was really key in deciding that race. And so these, especially like in DuPage where we are, and this is where we're building out the model, which is just outside of Cook. This is the second highest. This county is a suburban county, gets the second highest number of votes in the state. So if anybody wants to win in Illinois, they have to win DuPage County. They have to be able to win DuPage County. So their key vote getting, and then you have a unique perspective where the way people consume information in the suburbs isn't the same as necessarily the city, where you have more single people, more professional people who have their time is spent differently. You have families, so you have people who are busy. They consume a lot of media, but they don't have time to read a white paper, to sit and investigate what they think about behind the media. They have lives and kids, and they're volunteering, and they have jobs, and so they needed you need to present things in a consumable 2-3 minute videos and ways that are easier to consume and conducive to their lives. So the idea is to build out, and then you have also to deal with suburb shift frequently. So you have to constantly check polling because people are moving from the cities into the suburbs, moving out. So in DuPage County, you have that happening a lot as people are moving out of Chicago for safer streets, lower taxes, the better schools. So we identified about 11 suburban districts around the nation that are demographically similar, and that would have the proximity to a city like that. And so we would like to we're paying attention to what's going on in those, and then we'd love to build out the model in some of those cities too.
If you want to see some of the videos from the organization, breakthrough-ideas.com is where you find it, or on Facebook, they're Breakthrough Ideas. As I said, a nonprofit organization trying to have conversations a little bit differently with people that are probably sick of seeing them one way on a lot of the major platforms. Can I just ask your opinion on a story? I didn't prep you for this. I want to throw a story at you, and it's actually not one you covered on video, because I just want your reaction as someone that your goal is to have a no-nonsense approach, I think, to some of the topics of the day, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Joe Biden, the Biden administration, is offering $500,000 in a brand new contest to improve face masks. He's offering it now. It'll be available, I think, until April 21st. My reaction is why? The Mask Initiative Challenge. Right. Do you, Kathleen, have a quick reaction to that story, or maybe a mask idea to help us make some money?
I don't have a mask idea to help you make money. I think I think that, they spend enough money on this kind of research. This is, it seems like publicity.
Yeah, I thought so too. It seems like a very odd, when you're pushing the vaccine and you're saying we're getting closer to having a normal July 4th, And then you're also saying I can make $500,000 if I have an awesome mask idea. I'm going to submit, though.
By the way,
why not?
Masks work,
right.
but you can't. But we need to make them better and wear too. And obviously, I wear a mask. I'm not trying to indict the mask policy itself. It's just an odd time to do this. This probably made sense a year ago, and not maybe so much now. But thank you as always, right. Kathleen Murphy. You are the founder, co-founder of Breakthrough Ideas. Are there any other stories you feel like people need to hear about before I let you go? Anything else that you guys have covered recently that you feel like is important to just get the word out on? Yeah, actually, I interviewed a woman named Isabella Rubinas, whose Glen Ellen mom lives in DuPage County, is being sued by the state of California for back taxes that she's owed, that the California says she owes. So she's being sued retroactively for sales taxes that Amazon didn't collect, that California says she's supposed to collect. The video is up on our Facebook page, but and the AG of Illinois has done nothing. Her Congressman Sean Casten has done nothing. It's been a failure of politicians in this. I would love for your audience to, I don't know how much time you have, but I would love for your audience to hear her story. I think it's really important how to understand how predatory government can be when it's not wanting to make its business partners mad. So her story is nobody will help her.
Yeah.
And so she has a
and that's
lawyer.
Available on that's available on your Facebook page?
Yeah, Facebook and on breakthrough-ideas.com.
Cool. It sounds like a very important story and one that hopefully we can bring a little bit more awareness to as well. Maybe if I can find some of that audio for a little later on in the show, I'll play it for you too, Kathleen. But thank you for joining us. Yes, please do. Thank you for joining us. A great work you're doing out there. I think it's important to have these types of organizations available, and certainly targeting the suburbs is very smart. So good luck to you.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the time.
Sure. This is Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. We're going to take a quick break here. A lot more in a bit.
Irreverence? Yeah. So what? It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Controversy. I got controversy to talk about here. And it's not the normal stuff. It's not the political stuff. I like this better, actually. It's Wheel of Fortune. A Wheel of Fortune contestant was robbed, I tell you, according to social media, for an answer to a puzzle that apparently you can't add an extra word. This is something that has happened before on the show. This needs to be fixed. We need to address this issue here and now. I'm going to play you the audio. There's a word added, the word "and" for a puzzle where there's multiple words and there's no additional word in there. You can't add "and" on Wheel of Fortune. This is what that sounds like.
So you've got that, and you have $1,350 cash. What do you want to do?
I'd like to solve, Pat.
All right, say everything. Don't add anything. Go ahead.
Sole, flounder, cod, and catfish.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, that's not right. And
we're sorry, you're wrong, even though it's obvious in the puzzle. You're totally right.
Danielle, it's your turn.
I like the fact that my audio has the spin, which means nothing to people listening on the radio, but it's here.
$650.
L.
Uh-huh. What would you like to do?
I'm going to solve.
All right, say everything. Don't add anything.
Sole, cod, catfish, flounder.
Yeah, that's it. And it's...
I thought that's what you said.
And I know it's always confusing, and David did that thing that's so easy to do. You added the "and."
I love the fact that this is drama lighting up Twitter. It is, by the way. You might have heard all that and been like, wow, that was almost nothing there, Collins. Why are you playing this? Well, the reason why is everybody's very upset with that TV show for having this rule that you can't put the word "and" in between some of the names in a list or the words in a list, because it's human nature to do it, but it's wrong as far as the puzzle goes. It's hilarious that people would care about that, and I play that audio for you more than anything else that could be going on. This is why it's an error to ever consult Twitter. If you have a company and your company winds up getting in trouble for something that's not a big deal, I think some big deals probably you need to address those on your own. But if it's not a big deal and the only people who care are the Twitter mob people, just ignore it. Just move on with your life. until it becomes something where someone else cares other than the Twitter mob. And I love it. I am entertained quite a bit by the fact that Wheel of Fortune does this very silly thing with the word and. I'm on team get rid of the rule. If you want to know what I'm hashtagging, I'm part of the team we got to change the way that these things work on the old show. But at the same point, I'm just thrilled that this is more viral than some of the much more important things that exist in our world. Also, the right way to eat chocolate bunnies. That is something that's being discussed out there in the world and something that makes me laugh. It is almost Easter. Happy Good Friday to everybody out there, too. It's an odd day to say happy, by the way. I know that a lot of people take the day off. Obviously, Chad took the day off, which is awesome for me. And so it is treated as a holiday weekend and everything for sure. But if you're Catholic, this is not really a day that's, all that good. But I guess the outcome of all of it winds up being pretty okay in the long run. That's my little tiny spiel on the world of religion for you for today. But let's go back to the Easter Bunny. A lot of people think that you screw this up. 78% of people say that you need to eat the ears of a bunny first. 11% eat the feet, and 11% eat the tail. And this has caused some kind of also debate on the world of social media. 78% go ears first. I think that is the appropriate way to go. This is just me. I just want to help answer the questions that are more important to some. That's maybe what you call this segment, answering the questions that are more important to some in the world of social media. Companies also did their April Fool's jokes in that same platform. I don't know if it's because it's so easy to make an April Fool's joke now. You just got to put it out in your old, Twitter account or what have you, that so many companies get in on it. Google announced that it was skipping the prank this year because, there's a pandemic and a lot of people aren't in a jokey mood. T-Mobile also skipped the prank and used yesterday just to raise money for charity instead. Those are probably good things. How'd everybody else fare? Well, Velveeta made an ad for a fake line of skincare products made entirely out of liquid cheese. So if you were interested in that, if you were excited about the Velveeta skincare line, I'm sorry to tell you that was an April Fool's joke. And also maybe look into your life a little more. Outback Steakhouse made fake lipstick that are the colors of different cooking temperatures for steak. That's not a terrible idea. I often have that problem at a steakhouse. I'm not going to say if it's Outback or not, where you order it one, way. I go medium rare, and it doesn't always come out the right way. If I would not throw the lipstick on myself, but if my wife were willing to wear the shade of lipstick that matched the steak I wanted, that might help everybody out. You might be able to turn and be like, it's the color. You got to make the steak the color of her lips right there. That would help me. I'm kidding. I don't think that's that great. Lego, by the way, made an ad for smart bricks that move out of your way when you try to walk out in a room. They should create this. This is something that should happen. We have the technology for no one to step on a Lego anymore. Bud Light Seltzer announced a pizza flavor, which is not something I would have thought is a joke because the seltzer products are getting crazy now. But a pizza flavor of Bud Light Seltzer was a April Fool's joke. Green Giant and Peeps teamed up to announce a cauliflower-flavored Peep that sounds terrible. How do you feel about Peeps? Let me ask you that and put it up on our social media page because this is an easy way to ignite our social media. I make a joke about how social media is silly, and then the best question I come up with for you is, do you like Peeps? But I can't help it. I want to know, and that's really what Facebook should be used for. No one should treat it like a serious thing. Maybe that's the overarching message of this entire segment right here as I bounce around the different jokes that were made. Maybe we should all just treat every day on social media like it's April Fool's. You got big companies making silly jokes. Maybe no one should take any of those platforms seriously ever. Maybe that should be the rule. Maybe I'll call Mark Zuckerberg up and be like, look, if anyone has a long, serious post for the world of social media, just delete it. Just get rid of it and make everything a joke. And then that way all our lives get better. Two other quick ones. Duolingo, which is an app that helps you learn foreign languages on your phone, created toilet paper that teaches you foreign language. I am a guy married to a woman from a different country. My wife is from Mexico, and she is fluent in Spanish as well as, of course, being fluent in English. So I would like some help learning Spanish. If I could get that help via the toilet paper, that's also not a bad idea. Not all these are terrible, by the way, people. If Duolingo, you want to create the product, I'm going to buy some. Finally, Jif Peanut Butter made exfoliating face masks made entirely out of peanut butter as a joke on their social media page. They look pretty interesting. But seriously, go back to some of these ideas. You got to have the Lego Smart Bricks. You got to have the Duolingo toilet paper teaching you foreign language. because sometimes, you need something to read. And if it's just sitting right there in front of you, maybe it makes things better. I got to take a break in a bit. After the break, I do want to talk a lot about the drama surrounding the infrastructure bill that's going to pass, an infrastructure bill that's for way too much money and covers way too many things that are not infrastructure. You'll hear how at least one politician tries to answer that question as to why certain things exist in this package when those things aren't necessarily part of the problem. And that's honestly a huge part of all these packages, and cutting out all that stupid additional added things that it's just like politician 101. And you'll hear at least one politician try to answer that question. Marco Rubio put out a really good piece of audio, a very good video about corporate hypocrisy as people are coming after the change in the election laws in Georgia. There are other things that you'd think companies would be anti or against, and they don't seem to be all that against those things. And that's kind of odd. Why pick this battle and not that battle? And that's something we'll cover a little bit later on. And then, of course, I have to talk about the Well Health Safety Seal and the commercials that exist out there, because I'm still confused as to what that is. All that coming up in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Infrastructure. If we pass a bill for trillions of dollars to improve infrastructure, should the entire bill actually focus on that goal? Or should we throw a bunch of other stuff in there that has ulterior motives, other different funding that has nothing to do with the bill itself? Let's hear how Neil Cavuto handles this question when he throws it at a politician, James Clyburn. And the answer is also very interesting, because there's one moment where the actual answer comes out of the guy's mouth, but he immediately moves on to something else. I don't even know if he intentionally had this word. It's one word come out, because Neil asks him a very straightforward question, and the correct answer is a simple no. And you'll hear it yourselves. And he immediately moves on, because maybe he accidentally had it come out when he meant to say something else. I don't know.
I can see, sir, keeping it focused on infrastructure, even in the broad sense you do about the internet. I get that. But when I hear about spending better than $400 billion to care for the elderly and the disabled, however meritorious that might be, also looking at the tuition-free community college, also looking down the road at universal pre-K, what the heck does this have to do with any of that?
It has to do with educating our children. It has to do with taking care of the elderly. I don't understand. We aren't Eskimos. We're not going to be carrying our elderly people out.
Is that infrastructure? That's what I'm saying. And does it blur the line so that you're losing support you might otherwise get if you kept it just...
You hear that little no in there? Is that infrastructure?
That's what I'm saying. And does it blur the line so that you're losing support?
No, it's not. Is what you... And I know he got interrupted. I know he was going a different way. But are those things the same as the other things that maybe you've been discussing here in the last few weeks, and things that you want to add into the bill to help with the infrastructure? No, those are not those things. But let's move on. Let's talk about how we're not Eskimos as individuals. I'm not saying, and obviously even Neil in his question, that some of the things that might get funded through this bill don't have merit, as he says. But they're not appropriate in this bill. Just like so many things that exist in our society now that need to be simplified to a degree that's just sort of ridiculous, these things need to be simplified a lot more than they are, and they never are. So another bill that's worth way too much money and has way too many things in it being discussed, but Twitter cares more about something way sillier. Let's also hear from Marco Rubio. I thought this audio was very interesting. He put a video on his social media page. I just said a little bit ago how social media should mostly be something we all take lightly and not something we use seriously. And yet, here we go. This is a serious example, and I like it. Marco's talking about the hypocrisy for businesses. So many corporations have said things like boycott Georgia, that want to move things. I think even Biden said to move the All-Star game out of Georgia. So many of these ideas right now talking about a voting bill that got passed there. And that's fine. If the companies feel that way, that's great. But why don't they feel that way about what's going on in China? About the fact that in Hong Kong, they had protests for democracy that had a lot of really weird things happen. And even some NBA players, by the way, back when that happened, had come out in support of Hong Kong and then kind of sort of had to backtrack some of that statement because of how valuable the market of China is. Apple, as a company, we would love to have you put out a big statement saying a lot of the things that the World Health Organization in China have done as far as the COVID-19 investigations have gone. I don't know if you've heard this, but recently several countries came together, the United States, one of them, to ask for more transparency than has been provided so far in the investigation of how the COVID-19 virus first became a thing, whether or not it was leaked out of a lab in Wuhan or found at the food markets in Wuhan. There's still been a difficulty in gaining full transparency from the country that is China. And by the way, when anyone ever attacks China on any of these kind of platforms, myself included, I'm attacking the government, not human beings that are of any specific descent. I just want to make sure that's abundantly clear for anyone that's too woke to hear the way that I'm talking about this. There is transparency that's a problem that's still looking to hopefully it someday come to light, all the details there. Lots of countries, Australia, UK, are asking for this, not just ours. And so far, China not giving it. And the World Health Organization's report that they put out, and even their own, I think, leader is saying that maybe we would like some more information. It's very odd. These things, corporations not going after. Georgia voting bill, corporations going after in force. Also very odd. Let's hear from Marco.
So Delta Airlines are business partners with the Chinese Communist Party, the same Chinese Communist Party that is committing genocide against Uyghur Muslims inside of China. So I look forward to a letter today from their CEO telling everyone that what the Chinese Communist Party is doing with genocide is unacceptable. I look forward to that letter saying that genocide does not reflect the values of Delta Airlines. Of course, they're not going to send that letter, nor is Coca-Cola, nor is any of these other corporations that are out there proving to the world how woke they are, because they are woke corporate hypocrites.
That's the money winner right there for me. That's the quote.
Because they are woke corporate hypocrites. That's what they are. They're woke corporate hypocrites. They make billions of dollars in a country that doesn't even have elections. They make billions of dollars working with a country that has no respect for anyone or anything, and they don't say a word about it. But in America, they're prepared to boycott a state and condemn them publicly to show and prove how woke they are. They're hypocrites, complete and total hypocrites.
Look, I think what he's touching on here, and definitely my biggest opinion in the conversation about the woke reaction to something, and anybody that's offended by the idea that we might term a lot of different things woke, I don't even know how to address that issue. But I'll just say this, is you wind up trapped in these conversations you shouldn't be having. There's so many of us. And honestly, I think that this is something that you hear about every so often. You meet a white guy who's passionate about a bunch of the woke issues of the day, issues about treating other races fairly, treating women fairly, all of this. And you look at the guy for a second, and a lot of people might say, hey, man, I love the fact that you're on the team, but these aren't necessarily your causes per se. So why are you so passionate about it? And every so often, I think the answer is, well, everybody's talking about them on social media. They're what's out there. So often you're dragged into a conversation as a politician, as a corporation, or as a human being, that maybe your voice isn't as necessary in. And I'm not trying to say that we all need to be silent. I love the fact that so many of us get to speak our minds freely in the country in which we're from, the United States of America. But there are times when maybe it's not appropriate for a company to step out there and say, hey, I'm boycotting Georgia like everybody else because it's the woke thing to do right now, when my company doesn't even really do any business there or has no need to make this statement. There's so many times. I think athletes wind up in this conversation a lot, and they speak their mind freely, and they have every right to do so. I will never tell an athlete to just play their game and not give their opinion, but it's probably at some point going to damage the business that is you if you give one too many opinions out there in the world, and some people don't agree with them. And that is, I think, to say it as simply as I can, the issue with woke culture, the issue with attacking a comedian for a set that they do on some stage somewhere, and they make jokes, and one of the jokes is too offensive for you, and now that joke means that comedian doesn't deserve to have a career. There are lines to these sort of things. There's moments when our voices, however free we are to use them in any sense, wherever we want, whoever we are, whatever company we are, maybe they don't need to be a part of that conversation. Maybe at that point, that voice doesn't need to be heard as loudly as all the other voices in the room, because honestly, there's some things that you should just not be a part of. That's my opinion. I know that it's going to be maybe a little bit controversial. I know that probably people aren't going to all agree with that, and that's fine. That's what's so great about this country. I get my chance to throw it out there. And if you're a company right now wondering if you need to throw out the woke statement on Georgia because so many other companies have done it, I've given you the pass to not have to do it. I've given you the right to go ahead and just keep making Velveeta cheese or whatever your product is and not worry so much about the politics of the day. And for the companies that do make these statements, as Marco points out, why only in some areas? Why are you making one statement here at a time when it seems to be valuable to your brand to be on the right side of a conversation or the wrong side of a conversation so that you get a little bit of extra exposure? There's no better example of this, by the way. Before I take a break, I want to say this real quick. Than Nike and Colin Kaepernick. There's no better. Nike made a tremendous amount of money off of Colin Kaepernick. Tremendous amount of money. And I'm not trying to say that they don't necessarily believe in the values of what Colin Kaepernick stood for when he was, kneeling for them. But that is truthfully a huge part of it. When a business gets tied in to this idea for something beyond business and then makes money off of it, you as the American consumer should feel a little weird about that. You shouldn't be like, no, it's fine. I'm supporting this company because they're obviously believe that the same things I believe, and also they charge us for it. And actually, I have one more example of that. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and play this because this is on point enough, and then we'll take a break. The Well Health Safety Seal is the weirdest thing. This is an idea. It costs money, by the way. There's an organization involved in this, but it's an idea where you get like a seal on a window or a wall or some part of your business to let the consumers know that the safety of that environment has been approved by this organization. They've taken a lot of time and energy to focus on these issues, and the amount of celebrities that are a part of these spots, and then just the repetition of the Well Health Safety Seal by like 3 or 4 different voices that you might know. It's so strange. Here, I want you to hear a part of this. It really feels as though everyone is indoctrinated to some sort of crazy conspiracy here, because what is this thing? And why do so many commercials now think it's effective to just repeat the name of something with random celebrity? If that's all it takes to make a product that is successful or that sells to people, I got a lot of ideas, and I got to figure out some way to get some of these celebrities a little bit of gauche so that they can do, because that, by the way, most of these celebrities don't know what this seal is. They read a script in front of a camera, and then they went about the rest of their lives. But let's hear it.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
I'm Dr. Richard Carmona, the 17th Surgeon General of the United States of America. This is the Well Health Safety Seal from the International Well Building Institute.
This is what it is. It looks like a seal. It's on a window or a wall or something. Don't worry, it means good things because 6 celebrities just told you it did.
The Global Authority on Healthy Buildings.
The Well Health Safety Seal means that we'll feel better going into restaurants,
theaters, stores, hotels,
stadiums, and all the places that we love.
Everything may look the same, but the Well Health Safety Seal means that your health and safety are top of mind when it comes to
cleaning and sanitizing.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. Everything might look exactly the same. It might seem like nothing has changed and like the business had to pay another company for more, useless things because they're now things that you require as a consumer that saw this video. But don't worry. Things definitely changed other than them writing us a check and us sending them a seal to put up on the old window. It's a totally different place now.
Procedures.
Air and water quality management.
Emergency preparedness programs.
And health services.
So look for the Well Health Safety Seal outside.
And feel more confident going inside.
I only feel bad for one person. Actually, I guess there's a lot of people. Anyone who sees that video, goes to a business and sees the seal and says out loud, well, look at that. There's the Well Health Safety Seal. Because you've just been whatevered. I don't want to say that word. You've just been screwed. Someone has tricked you. Someone has brainwashed you. A lot of things have happened because the Well Health Safety Seal is useless, and I just want to let you know. All right, quick break, a lot more in a bit. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Greg Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. I saw this story. I don't know why. Actually, okay, I can figure out why someone like the New York Post would cover this story. A woman out of New Jersey by the name of Laura Jasorka, probably, of the famous Jasorkas of, that's probably not, that sounds more like a name for a fish than it does a human. But she is a free spirit who loves to go rock climbing, and she loves to do it without clothes on. This is something she does a lot. She says it's not salacious, though. It's not the things you might call it. It's not the P word. That's not what this is. This is art. She's very artistic. My biggest reaction to this story, other than the fact that she says, and I quote, "I instantly fell in love with naked climbing." What now? Why is it so different than regular? I don't know. But when I react to this, this has to be utterly uncomfortable. Like, this is one of many activities I'd want to do fully clothed just because of the activity itself. I don't know. Bungee jumping also comes to mind as something you'd probably want to do, fully stocked up on the old clothing. But she's several other quotes in the story. I am more prone to grazing when rock climbing and may end up with more scratches. But at least I won't have any snag clothing. Okay. My friends and family admire my photos, and they think it's beautiful to see me at one with nature. I kind of thought that would be a part of it. She's also quoted as saying, "I'm not doing anything illegal, and I don't show off everything. It's not, the other stuff. It's just art." And she also says that it's empowering and that she's appreciating her body and, wants people to appreciate their bodies. So she goes, "I just don't get the rock climbing. That's all I'm saying, Laura. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I just would assume that out of all the activities you partake in, when you're doing things like that, outdoors, what have you, that it's probably better to be wearing some protective clothing." I owned a motorcycle for a long time. I love my motorcycle. I don't know what it would have felt like to ride that motorcycle without the protective gear you're supposed to wear and obviously go the full Laura route with it. But I tell you that I felt safer since I had things on. I mean, it's very interesting. Thank you, New York Post, for bringing this article to my attention and putting it out there for the world to see. I also saw this, that millennials are upset. I should just say that. That should be the whole headline and nothing else. They're upset now, not just because of avocado toast and everything else. And by the way, I am at times a self-hating millennial. I am a millennial. I'm from the generation. But apparently millennials are starting to gain more wealth, and they're still upset that they might lag behind other generations. This article, also in the New York Post, thank you for supplying the segment to me, demonstrates how even rich millennials feel as though they're being unfairly impacted by the fact that they're of a certain generation. And so this is about as a full circle as it gets when you get to a point where you're very well off, very wealthy, and then you're still very upset with the world as it is, because truthfully, 40% below wealth expectations for their age group is one of the complaints of the millennial generation. I don't know if you needed rich, wealthy people born in the 1980s to early 90s or whatever your millennial generation is to start complaining that they're not rich enough. I feel like this should also be attacked on a much lighter scale than it's going to be attacked today. But if you're doing very well, if you're in a very high percentage of people as far as income goes, I don't think you need to complain that it's just not where it should be. That's probably a voice we don't need right now. My opinion doesn't have to be yours. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. There's a lot that you're going to be able to watch this weekend that should be very interesting. Obviously, of course, celebrating Easter is probably something you'll do this weekend. Final Four, you got Baylor a 1 versus Houston a 2, and then you got Gonzaga, a 1 seed, undefeated team, trying to be the first undefeated team to actually win a championship since a team back in the 1970s out of Indiana, versus a number 11 UCLA. Now, last time I was in for Chad, I said we should all as a country rally around a low seed that makes it very far into this tourney, because that's how we should all feel as people after the year we've all dealt with. So I'm a huge UCLA fan right now, not just because I want to see them beat an undefeated team, but because I'd like to see an 11 seed win a championship. I would have preferred to see Oral Roberts actually go the distance, but that wasn't going to happen. They were 15. So I'm begging you, if you're out there, if you desire to see something awesome happen, and not necessarily something that makes sense, I guess, for most of the analysts, whatever they are. I can't even say the word right now. Most of the people out there that are analyzing these games, I think that's what I was going with. The experts, I think is what I was trying to say. Then you should cheer for UCLA against your Gonzaga, who everyone says Gonzaga is going to win that game, and it's going to be rough. And then Baylor and Houston a 1 and a 2. That's boring. Don't go that road. Something else you're going to have to watch this weekend, by the way, and the analysts are going to get involved in this. I'm just going to keep trying to say the word, is Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's going to give an interview on Sunday, and on Sunday they're going to talk about his laptop. And the answer to whether or not it's his laptop is one of my favorite answers I've ever heard in the history of interesting questions being answered by interesting people, which is how I'm going to phrase this. Listen to what he says. The back and forth is incredible. And I do wonder if the reason he gives the nondescript, maybe kind of sort of answer is because maybe it could be proved. Maybe someone out there can actually demonstrate that it is his laptop and he's worried about that. Otherwise, he'd deny. But this is what he chose to go with.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you know that's this is.
I really don't know.
Okay.
The answer is.
You don't know yes or no if the laptop.
I don't have any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. There could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
It could be a lot of other things too, Hunter. It could be that the old car stereo that that you stored for a long time is just being confused as a laptop, because a lot of young people don't know what car stereos look like or did. It could be that the laptop was used in a deep fake video and now it's sentient and on its own, and that laptop has nothing to do with you, but now it's sort of owned to you. Or maybe you're just a deep fake version of yourself right now, Hunter. Maybe it could be that I love this answer, and I love all the different other things he could have said, as I just tried to demonstrate there. It could be mine. I don't know. Maybe. Kind of. Hunter, do you know what's on the laptop? Are you confused at all about why that is obviously being identified as something connected to you and your interests in certain places? Yeah, it could be that. It could be something else. What is that answer? I'll play it again for you, and I want you just on your own to think about what actually the truth is. If anybody in your life gave you an answer to any question that you wanted to be yes or no, and they gave you the answer this way, you would 100% think every single person who gave you this answer was lying. Like if a boss asked you after you showed up late for work one day, hey, why are you late today? You're like, I don't know, it could be a lot of reasons. You're probably fired after the answer involves Russian intelligence. But take it away again, Hunter.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you know
this is. I really don't know.
Okay.
The answer is.
You don't know yes or no if the laptop.
I don't have
was
any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. It could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
That's my favorite. Maybe I'll turn that into my ringtone. It could be. I don't know. Could be somebody calling. Could be Russian intelligence making my phone ring when it's not actually a phone call. Maybe I don't answer it. I also saw this other news of the day, audio that's valuable and also much more touching than confusing, which is what that just was. A kid saved his sister from choking because of the TV show he watched on Nickelodeon. A TV show called The Substitute. I guess John Cena was part of a prank in which somebody may have choked or something might have happened, and they taught people how to help with that situation. This is what it sounds like when you interview a kid, an 8-year-old kid who saved his little sister's life because of a TV show he watched. This is great. This is wonderful. We need more stories like this out in the world, because honestly, these things are better than all the other things that exist. Let me make sure that it's going to play correctly here, because now I'm thinking that it's not going to play for a second. But here we go. This is a kid saving his daughter's life, or sister's life.
It made me feel scared. I thought she was going to die, but then the scene came into my mind. I told my dad to pull over, then I started to pat her back.
Her face was bright purple and red. She wasn't really breathing, and Jackson sprung into action before I even opened the door.
I feel like a hero so much.
I told my dad to pull over. Just put ourselves in the world of this child right now. This kid's 8 years old, sees his sister choking, turning blue, according to dad, not breathing. And he's like, Pop, pull over. I got this. John Cena taught me how via Nickelodeon, saved her life. And he's like, I feel like a superhero. You are. You're definitely a superhero, Jackson. You deserve to be praised as a superhero. I'm questioning dad a bit right now that you're driving a car and you need the 8-year-old to tell you to pull over. But hey, this story is a happy ending, so let's not dive too far into the additional details there. It's just surreal to hear him talk about this and to be like, hey, I saved my sister's life. It's a good thing that I did, and I feel like a superhero, because you should. And he, by the way, Jackson Dempsey, much more specific, much more capable of answering a yes or no question than Hunter Biden is. There's no it could have been. No, I'm not really sure how I learned how to save somebody's life. I watched Nickelodeon, I got it done, and boom, we're all here and we're all happy because of me. I can't get over the fact that he also had to tell dad to pull over. He's like, you gotta, she's choking. We gotta take a second. Give us a minute here before we move on. And I don't know what's going to be the most interesting thing to watch this weekend, by the way, if it'll be Hunter or the Final Four. You'll have to tell me. We'll all have to decide together. I did see one other story real quick I want to touch on. This is not news in probably the biggest of ways, but it's news that I find interesting. New home buyers, predominantly young people, have been purchasing homes that are old, homes that are a little beat up, homes that are projects. They're doing this because a lot of TV shows show you just how easy it is to remodel, renovate, create a new home from a beat up one. And apparently the biggest problem in all this, a lot of the new homeowners don't understand how expensive that whole procedure is. Data from Realtor.com shows that sales for homes built more than 100 years ago have skyrocketed. They've risen over 16% year over year. In certain areas like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, it's gone up even higher. The median price for homes like this is well over $200,000. But people are buying these homes because they feel they can flip it. Not obviously always the case. Viral social media accounts, including a couple people that I'm not going to throw their handles out there, have spotlighted some dilapidated properties that might be selling for cheap, telling their fans to go out and grab these homes because they're valuable. And yet you see this sort of thing and you wonder, I am utterly ill-equipped to flip a house or remodel, renovate a house. If my wife got into some of these homes and started to tell me, look, we can get a home in New York City for, very cheap compared to most other homes there, but it has no roof, we'd be screwed. There'd be no way to get that done. And maybe this is just my little PSA moment to most of the people considering these homes. Probably this is just an idea. Hire some sort of person who does construction work, somebody who's a master of this sort of thing, and have them go on a walkthrough with you of your utterly destroyed, very old home to make sure that it's something that can be fixed. It would probably be nice if this person is somehow related to you too. But if not, just get a quote for what you think an expert would take to fix the house before you buy the house, because I'm telling you, you probably don't have all the skills to get it done on your own. This is the Chad Benson Show. Craig Collins filling in. More in a bit.
Warning, no snowflake zone. Uninformed opinions are in danger of melting. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Sometimes people publicly question things that happen with the Chinese government and or Chinese state television, which is just a weird sentence in and of itself. And other people accuse them of being terrible people, of not being woke, of not having that be part of the conversation. And then a story like this breaks. Chinese state television, CGTN, has been using a French reporter, a French journalist, to counter some of the claims that used to go on. This French journalist apparently had a double degree in history and archaeology, because why not? Just go ahead and go for the double degree from the University of Paris. The problem is, according to the French people now and French press, this person doesn't exist. This journalist that they've quoted and utilized time and again to refute some of the claims of ways in which the Chinese government or the Chinese, state-run television journalist station are saying and doing things that aren't necessarily on the up and up. They use this guy, this voice of reason that worked at a newspaper, Le Mode, and other things. Apparently, none of it's true. And so the next time that you are in a conversation with someone, anybody, and they throw out some sort of question as to whether or not the Chinese government is of the up and up, or the Chinese news stations that are owned by the government, if they're all doing things well, just go ahead and give them this story of this French journalist who does not exist as one of the people. Be like, have you heard the story of Laurent Beaumont? Have you heard about him? Because he's not a real human. And I probably just said his name wrong, but I offended no one because he doesn't exist. Because the state government, they just made him up. Think about that, too, in the world of journalism. And I know we feel all the time that fake news media does things like create fake sources, but they never give them names and degrees and stuff. We never hear from the person who has a double major degree and has worked for years in all these reputable places that also, has no existence whatsoever. So maybe that's the next step in the world of fake news journalism. If they can get away with it in China, maybe they can get away with it here. I also saw this hot take, and I'm not sure I can make it through talking about this without having deep reactions to it. Here is the headline: the difference between agoraphobia and feeling anxious as we all end lockdown. That is the headline. There's a whole take out there to help people who might feel anxious and are not actually afraid of the outside, like someone who struggles with agoraphobia. I can't handle this world, right? Like that, not our world that we're in right now. I don't mean the totality of the world we all exist in. I mean the world created by this thought piece on the internet that's trying to help people who are afraid of going back outdoors if the lockdown were to end wherever you live. If it's already ended or will end soon, if you're fearful, and this is mask or no mask, none of that comes into play, of just going out there. They quoted a 20-something and her own insecurities about the world we all live in. We need this sort of thing to not be a thing. I don't know how to better say that. We need to not have people that have dealt with the year that we've all dealt with that sucked have to go out and now be afraid to be outside again, because that should be the happiest moment for all of us. Depending on where you are, if you're vaccinated or not, which obviously has continued to happen, and whatever else it takes to get us back to the world of normalcy, it should be praised. I do want to have like a global party. The day that coronavirus is officially defeated, whenever all the politicians agree it is, whatever, I don't care. I would like everybody collectively to go out into their front yards and have the biggest smash, the biggest party ever. I want this to be crazy. There needs to, and maybe it's July 4th. According to the current president of the United States, it feels like July 4th could be that day. But we all need that. We can't be afraid of going out into the world of having a sense of insecurity, of maybe needing behavioral therapy, according to this article, to get us back over the hump of being back outdoors. I know it's been a while. I know it's been over a year since coronavirus became a serious topic that we had to talk about in everyday life. And yet it hasn't been so long that so many of us hopefully are not traumatized to the extent of needing a self-help article to get us back into the outdoor world. Last year, various experts expressed concern, this is quoting the article now, about the impact of an ongoing coronavirus pandemic, one that would create issues of things like agoraphobia and risks in developing it. With the constant shifts and uncertainty that was a problem with our everyday lives. These concerns are reflected in the experience of many people. Even just the briefest sweep of social media tells you that much. According to the article, you just got to shake it off. I just quoted Taylor Swift, which I hope helps in this conversation. You just got to get back out in the real world when it's safe to do so. If you're fully vaccinated and still kind of afraid, I think you need to find a way to not be. To find a way to get over that hump, because there's definitely a situation coming in the not so near future where we're all back out in the world, where everything's back to normal. I even saw this. Google is changing the amount of people who can work from home. A year ago, I think, about around now, Google was one of the many companies out of Silicon Valley, or I think throughout the country, praised for just letting everybody work from home as long as they want to, whenever they want to. And I think those policies, when they were reported about a year ago, were permanent. They were things that were going to last far beyond any kind of pandemic. You'd be able to work from home forever. Don't worry. Anyone that has agoraphobia now, it's okay. You're going to be fine. They changed that policy. Now you have to ask for permission to work beyond 14 days, and it has to be approved because they want people back in the offices. How weird is that, the way that that works? As we start to get the environment back to the way it used to be, a lot of those things that we had talked about a year ago changing might not change quite so much. And I'm not trying to really go after anyone that truly has any sort of issues they're struggling with. That's not the humor in this. The humor in this is to think that a self-help piece needs to be put out there for a lot of people that don't have serious illness or serious issues and are just maybe worried that now they struggle from something. I think I saw a stand-up comedian say that millennials are better than any other generation, and again, I am a millennial, in telling you what's wrong, what the problem is, but they're pretty bad in fixing problems. They're pretty bad in our own lives. They're bad in doing more than identifying that they struggle with stress or anxiety or this or that, and there's got to be solutions. They just haven't been found yet. Maybe because the solutions can't be condensed into just one tweet, can't be put out there in 140 characters to make it easy for us. But I do think that's a very good point, a very apt acknowledgement, too, that for whatever reason, the younger generations are very, very good at expressing what the issue is, where the problem is, how culture is not woke or what have you, but really not that good at getting to a point to fix any of said problems. And again, I just want to repeat this one more time. I apologize for the many, many people who don't need this. If you're feeling fearful of the outside world, even if it gets to a point in the near future where, all of the government officials, not just some of the government officials, are telling you that it's safe to be outdoors, you got to just try to find a way to get over that fear and rejoin society as best you can, unless you have, I guess, a serious illness, because that's what we've wanted this entire time. The entire time we've been locked down and shut down and whatever, we've wanted to get back to normal life, and we can't start to be afraid of normal life now, because then I just feel like the circle is never ending. Then it's not just coronavirus that takes you down, it's anything. It's anyway. We got to take a break in a bit. After the break, I do want to continue to cover the border, a much more important story than what I'm talking about here. I want to cover some of the things that are happening as far as the latest infrastructure bill that's passed or that's trying to get passed, and how much money is in the infrastructure bill that has nothing to do with infrastructure, because that's important. That's something that you have to focus on. And honestly, there's so many ways in which we need things to be simple, and yet our government is still capable of passing the most complex, ridiculous things, and people don't really question that as much as they should. So that's something we need to get to a little bit sooner. I'm probably going to play the Hunter Biden audio again. Hunter Biden saying that it maybe could have sort of kind of been his laptop. And my producer, Phil, pointed out something great. What other things has Hunter Biden lost that he's not necessarily aware are his? If you can lose a laptop, you might be able to lose something even more valuable. I'll talk about all that in a bit. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
This is The Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I want to talk about defund the police and the ramifications of places that actually did some portion of that reduced police budget. There is a new report that says that violent crime, murder, among other things, has skyrocketed in areas that have reduced police budgets. This is not necessarily news to a lot of people, but obviously something that was maybe more an expectation. Minneapolis, one of those areas that's seen violent crime surge in the last year. And I have seen other takes talking about how this is related more to the fact that we've dealt with a pandemic and that maybe the pandemic has made people, behave differently. That seems illogical to me. I mean, if you have it in certain areas that have reduced police budgets, they don't have the force to handle it. And I did see this too, tied to some of those takes, that police officers themselves have been out sick because of things like COVID-19 and had to take leave. And if you have a reduced budget, it's harder to get staff when you have things like sick days that happen. Portland, Oregon, another place that's shown a record high in murder rate. It's tripled year over year. Obviously, Portland been at the center of a lot of conversations about things like this, and certainly even allowed for certain areas to be created in their city before we're figuring out that was probably a mistake. New York City, murders in New York City are up 11.8% year over year. In Los Angeles, you've seen a 38% increase in murders in 2020, despite the coronavirus mandates to keep people indoors. As of 2021, murder is up 28.3%. And this is just one of the many crime statistics that we should start to acknowledge the problem. And here's the thing. My reaction to this, and we'll get to the border in a second. I'll play some audio. We'll talk about it too. And honestly, it might be a prevailing theme all the time whenever I do any kind of radio broadcasting. Our world requires complex things to be simplified to a degree that makes no sense and causes more harm than good. And then for whatever reason, makes simple things overly complex. That seems to be the world we all live in. I don't know if that's because of social media, because of our technology we have today that allows us to text instead of call each other. I do think that's a part of it. You have to realize that if you're a texter and not a phone caller, you probably need things to be slimmed down as much as possible. You need things to be made as simple to understand, and the back and forth communication as basic as possible, because no one wants an essay via text. But if you're not willing to hop on a phone and talk to somebody, then it's going to be a little trickier. And that case in point has to be this: the whole movement to defund the police, the whole plan, the whatever reaction to. And I know that the Derek Chauvin case is going on right now. I could talk more about that. Obviously, it's something that's very important to a lot of people. And yet I think that you got to wait for the entire process to play itself out before throwing out the best and most accurate reaction I can have to it. There has been some things reported that are already different than some of the things we'd heard before. So we'll have to keep going down that road and see what the overall outcome is there. But as far as this goes, obviously in reaction to George Floyd's death and a lot of other stories similar to that one, people push for all kinds of social change, of getting our world to be a better place, quote unquote. One of those things, defund the police, obviously not working. Because as with the border, and I'll get to this now, there needs to be a deterrent for bad behavior to not exist. You can't have a stern lecture be the entire solution to a problem in which people are doing things like just throwing kids over a 14-foot wall, having them land on the other side, a fence, and hoping for the best, because that's sort of what the American policies right now seem to indicate it'll work out. If the kids are okay, if they survive, they might be able to get into the country. That's what happened. There's a real video, a 3- and a 5-year-old thrown 14 feet to the ground on a fence by a coyote, by someone who just, they're paid to get someone into the United States, and they did it this way. The 2 kids are okay now, but the press secretary was recently asked about this story and what the actual administration policy is to prevent it for the protection of children. To have something dangerous not happen, you need a deterrent. You need law enforcement to be capable of responding to aggressive behavior and people that might harm each other. You need that to exist. I don't know if we can perfect the system better than we have in the past. And obviously, things like the George Floyd death should never have happened. That is a tragedy. I'm easily capable of saying that. And yet, as you discuss those sort of things, you wonder if the solution becomes too simple, because right now, the only solution the administration has for the border crisis, the border surge, a word, by the way, that AOC has an issue with. Can't say surge because that sounds too close to insurgents, which means we're calling everybody a terrorist. That's a real take from AOC that I can probably get us on just a bit. But here, this is Jen Psaki talking about the border with a reporter and then being much more interested in the motivation for the question rather than answering the question and its actual value.
And then on immigration, has the White House considered beefing up border security now that there is video of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old being thrown over the wall in New Mexico?
beefing up border security.
There's video now of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
I've seen the video, and I think any of us who saw the video were incredibly alarmed by the steps of smugglers, ones that we have been quite familiar with, that we've spoken out about our concerns about. As Secretary Mayorkas said, the inhumane way smugglers abuse children while profiting off parents' desperation is criminal and morally reprehensible. The President certainly agrees with that. And these kids, I believe, were rescued by individuals who are working at the border.
Yes, but they still got close enough, as you guys are talking about addressing root causes in the region, for a smuggler to throw them over a wall into the desert. And I'm just curious what the White House is doing to stop that from happening.
And are you concerned more about the kids' safety, or are you concerned about kids getting in?
That's the point that doesn't make any sense to me. He repeats the question, and then she cares more about the motivation behind the question in that moment. This is just a tip to her, anyone else out there in the world that has to answer a difficult question sometimes that has merit, even if the person who's asking it is coming after you. And I'm not saying that this reporter is actually doing that. That's not how I feel. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the person that's asking you a question inherently disagrees with you on several issues. If the question is asked legitimately, if it has value, answer it. Don't try to dissect where they're coming from so that somehow wins the argument. This is the old-fashioned, attack the person's credibility as opposed to answering any of the things that are of concern to the American people. So go ahead, answer your question by asking whether or not this guy's a jerk.
To stop that from happening.
And are you concerned more about the kids' safety, or are you concerned about kids getting in, or tell me more about your concern here?
Kids' safety is, as you just mentioned, the main concern.
Well, of course it is, which is why I'm often surprised by some of the line of questioning here. But I will say that our concern and our focus is on sending a clear message to the region that this is not the time to come. You should not send your kids on this treacherous journey, that these smugglers are preying on vulnerabilities in these communities. There's a lot of issues and steps we need to take to address root causes. So, of course, our concern is for the safety of these kids.
Look, here's what I'll say. Even if the solution could have been stern warning, could have been, hey, don't come, which is what they've said. They don't show up at our border. Don't travel here. That's not something you should do. Don't do it. Even if that was a viable solution, which everyone in the history of the world should know that stern language by itself is not usually effective at preventing things like, crime. But if that is the solution you came up with, you have to agree it's not working. If that's what you've done so far, and there is a surge of people at the border, more than we've seen in a long, long time, and certainly a lot of unaccompanied minors, which is a problem and a danger to said unaccompanied minor. It's not necessarily an issue beyond that. It is bad for those kids to be thrown over a 14-foot fence. That's a bad thing. We need to stop it. Your solution so far has been tell them no, and that hasn't worked. You just got to agree, so you got to come up with a new answer. The answer can't be the same. It's that old quote that you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, because that, my friends, is insanity. Quick break, a lot more in just a bit. Greg Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
If you like talk radio like Chad Benson likes his meals, you've come to the perfect place for takeout.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here with you. Lots of stuff to discuss. I saw this story. A company that produced some of the Johnson & Johnson vaccines had a history of violations, had a history of issues as far as being capable of creating quality products, a quality control issue. And we just had to throw out 15 million doses because of this problem. That is a problem. That's the kind of thing you can't let happen. Emergent Biosolutions, a little-known company vital to the vaccine supply chain, was a key to Johnson & Johnson's plan to deliver 100 million. I feel every time like I want to be Dr. Evil from a movie that's getting older and older and less people understand the reference, for its single-shot vaccine to the United States by the end of May. But the Food and Drug Administration repeatedly has cited Emergent for problems such as poorly trained employees, cracked virals, and problems managing mold and other containment things within their facilities, according to records obtained by the Associated Press. This is all back in like 2017 that they've had issues with a bunch of other stuff. Johnson & Johnson said earlier this week that a batch of their vaccine made by Emergent at its Baltimore facility has a quality control issue. It does not meet the standard. They're going to have to get rid of it. They will have to create more. Human errors do happen. This is according to Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's obviously top infectious disease expert. You have checks and balances. That's the reason why. The good news is that they didn't wind up picking up any of these. But the bad news is that they wound up using a facility that we probably could have guessed is going to make some mistakes, and they did, and it hurt a lot of our vaccine supply chain. I'm just surprised that these sort of things, what's always the most shocking, this is the best way to say it, is when the government makes mistakes that seem like they're easy to not make. And, it's the government. They got a lot of ability there. They can figure out if they've cited some of the places that they're sending these sort of things with. So if Johnson & Johnson is still using a facility they shouldn't be using to get a vaccine that's vitally important to our government, you'd think that there would be more checks and balances before we lose so many of the vaccines. But that's a thing out there in the world. Also, Little Caesars is looking to name your living room. This is a very interesting promotion. It's a not so legally binding contract, according to their social media pages and everyone that I've looked at involving this. It says Little Caesars would love for you to rename your living room the NHL viewing room. Obviously, of course, with Little Caesars added in there. And then you get free crazy bread every Wednesday. Look, whether or not you're a fan of the free crazy bread idea, my living room is available for sale, and they all should be available for sale. You can rename it. I work in radio. We often name our studios after sponsors. This is a concept. Maybe we get there in the world of social media or just our clothing to where we all go full NASCAR. Everything is sponsored. You have friends over. You got to bring them to the Little Caesars NHL viewing room to hang out. You're going to go hit the dining room, which is brought to you by Pizza Hut. Don't worry, competing sponsors, different rooms. It's just that simple. But I would love for a lot more companies to get involved in this. I don't know how you truly prove you do this. So I don't know how many people take it seriously outside of the not so legally binding contract you send to name it the viewing room. We send you some little some decals or something to add up in the room. But I think that this is a tremendously intelligent and not silly. Okay, it is silly concept out there in the world. I also saw that people are very afraid of being judged in public for coughing or sneezing. This is real. This is probably tied to something I talked about earlier, that some people might be afraid to go back into the real world. The top thoughts, according to a recent survey, I think it was a recent survey on social media, so trust it if you want, as to the top thoughts you have when you do sneeze or cough in public is great. Now everybody thinks I'm sick. 37% of people say that. I promise I'm not sick. 29% of people think and say that out loud. Hold it in is the other idea that goes through your mind. 27%. I hope I don't have snot in my mask. 24% of people feel that way. And it's just allergies, I swear, is something you might say as a public excuse. 24% of people go that road. I have a sixth sense now to people like sneezing or coughing in public. I do. That is one change that the pandemic has caused in me. I don't know if it's caused it in you. Whenever you're in public and it's not you, whenever I do it, I guess I think one of these things. I'm not sick, don't worry, people. But if it's somebody else, your head does dart. You do look over. You do consider, like, wait a minute, what's going on? Is that 4 sneezes in a row? This guy is probably need to be, not that we'd ever do anything about it, but I'm admitting I'm using this radio right now as a trust tree between you and I, listener, to tell you that at least, yes, I do notice the more that people are out in public and sneezing. When someone else sneezes in public, do you immediately say, bless you? Today's Good Friday. It's a religious holiday this weekend. It seems like the right time to kick up the bless yous a little bit more and maybe make somebody feel like you're not immediately afraid they got the coronavirus. 6 in 10 people say immediately bless you, but only up to 3 consecutive sneezes. If it's any more than that, people are now afraid and don't say bless you, I guess. I hope they're not sick is something that 37% of people think. If you have more than, that's such a weird number, by the way. I don't know that 3 is my limit. I don't know that I hear somebody sneeze 2 or 3 times and I'm like, I just got allergies. And then once it hits 4, I'm like, we're at DEFCON 5. I don't know that that's how I go. I hope it's just allergies. 34% of people feel that way. No matter how you sneeze, 46% of respondents to the survey said they're dreading the upcoming allergy season because of the additional stress put on by the pandemic still being a thing. still being out there in the world. As a result, 27% of seasonal allergy sufferers are going to maybe do more to protect themselves or maybe just go out less in the world. I guess that might be a part of it too. If you do feel like you're going to sneeze a little bit too much for people to be comfortable around you, and then you stay at home for that reason, I don't think you should do it, but I guess it's a thing that could be happening. One last quick story, just because this is the quick story segment, I guess. Disneyland is selling a fried pickle corn dog with a side of peanut butter. It is said to be marketed toward pregnant women. I guess this is a staple of the old weird diet that might happen. A fried pickle corn dog with a side of peanut butter. That is an item out there. I want to try it. There's a picture of it. It doesn't look great. I think it sounds kind of terrible, but I'd love to know on our social media pages. This is what I do. I like to troll our social media pages. I don't know why. And I don't think people play along, but tell Chad Benson on his Facebook page or on his Twitter page if you'd like to try a fried pickle corn dog from your local Disneyland. Okay, there's not a lot of those, with a side of peanut butter, and whether you think that sounds gross or not, because I'm not sure it does. I think that it could be good. It could be interesting. Oh, real quick, one last one. I have one more. There might be a cure for baldness. I say this a lot. There's a lot of scientific studies that happen. This one out of Harvard that say they identify some protein or something in the hair. They might be able to regrow it. This is the newest one. It's out there. So anybody like me, fearful of the hair going, maybe there's a cure. Maybe. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I'm going to try for just a second here real quick to talk about Lindsey Graham firing an assault rifle or a AR-15, which actually does not stand for assault rifle, by the way. For anyone that thinks that AR does, it doesn't stand for that. But he was firing an AR-15 in a video to talk about a lot of things, including gun rights, I think. It's an interesting sight to see Lindsey firing that weapon via video he puts up on social media, just because it is what it is. I don't know that that's the right road to go to get gun rights to be a conversation that we all understand in the same way, to put yourself up there firing. He does demonstrate, though, in the video that an AR-15 without any sort of modification does not fire automatically. It does fire a round at a time, which is part of the conversation as to why that specific gun is or isn't something that should be easy or legally obtainable. If it's something that should, and obviously a lot of people have conversations. A lot of people weigh in on this issue a lot. Here's what I always say about it whenever I talk about gun rights in general is I don't own a gun personally. That doesn't mean that I think that other people shouldn't have the right to legally own a gun, and I don't not own one because of some moral stand against it per se. And then I think about the people in my life I know who do legally carry and own firearms, and one of the people I always think of is my Uncle Vinny. My Uncle Vinny, yes, I'm an Italian from the East Coast who has an Uncle Vinny. It's a thing. It happens, okay? But my Uncle Vinny's a retired Marine. He served in the Marines for a long time, made it fairly highly up in the organization. His retirement just recently was a big deal, and he still carries a firearm. If there were ever a situation, ever anything bad were to happen, and my Uncle Vinny were there, he would do everything in his power to stop the bad thing from happening, much like he did for his entire career while protecting our country. So I inherently believe it's a good thing that my Uncle Vinny is legally capable of having a firearm, and whenever I'm with him, whenever I go visit or go somewhere, I feel safer knowing that he's there and capable of doing what he needs to do if anything horrific ever were to happen. And so part of the gun conversation when we have it, when we talk about, what is and isn't an American right based on the Constitution, which feels fairly clear there, we always envision this world, I think, especially people who are on one side of this conversation, that is the most horrific, the most tragic, and the stories that come out in the news on a way too frequent basis demonstrate the somewhat rational need for a fear like that. But we never talk about anywhere near as much the people like my Uncle Vinny who would save lives if given the opportunity. Not that I'd ever want him to have that opportunity, but if God forbid something like that were to happen and he were in that situation, there would be a tremendously good chance that the outcome would be far better than if someone like him was not there. And so every time we talk about these and every time that it's back and forth onto, well, guns could save lives and people say they can't, I just think of that. That's my own opinion. I don't necessarily picture Lindsey Graham on a video firing an AR-15. That's not where my brain goes first in the gun debate, but it does go other places. And I figured I'd weigh in since it was all over social media. In other news, also a difficult topic, I guess, to talk about or, navigate through. Matt Gaetz is being investigated for a lot of really terrible things. Apparently, there might have been payments to different women for sex and other things. There might have been drug use. This all came to light because a text exchange from a couple years ago, I guess, with Matt and one other Florida politician. They went into some license office to print an ID. I guess, according to the text that have already been made public, this official was trying to help Matt Gaetz get an ID because he lost his and he had a flight coming up and they were going around some of the typical procedures to get a replacement ID. And then the entirety of the text exchange between them might have been obtained by, or probably was obtained. It seems like it's been obtained. I don't know for sure. I haven't seen any of this by law enforcement and now maybe even the New York Times. And that is where other things might be confirmed. Within the New York Times piece, they say they reviewed receipts of something called a Cash App, a mobile payment app, kind of like PayPal, I guess, and Apple Pay, another app that obviously helps you pay for things that's on any Apple device, that showed Mr. Gaetz and Mr. Greenberg, the other individual, paying for things that are obviously within this investigation. So I haven't seen any of this. The best I can do is inform at this point with facts, which I have very few of, and tell you about the existence of the story and the reporting in the New York Times, but not necessarily tell you until we know for sure, until things have been, demonstrated. I think that's a pretty good plan for a lot of us. Even if the New York Times is a credible news organization to a lot of individuals, you still got to wait to have proof confirmed somewhere else. But for now, and Matt had already gotten in front of this, I guess, earlier this week when he was in an interview with Tucker Carlson, made some reference to some things that he felt were totally lies and people coming after him that touched on these sort of stories. They were not published at the time, of course, so a lot of people were kind of confused where the comments came from. And now, in light of this story in the New York Times, it does seem to make more sense that Matt would start talking about ways in which political people are taking opportunities against him. And yet we just need more information. Just like with any other story out there, we need more information. I want to spin for a second, too, to this story. I find it very interesting. 14-year-old Brendy Levi was very upset that she didn't make her varsity cheerleading team as a freshman. And she put some things out there. The Golden Bears, I don't know why that's in this story. That's the thing. She put some things out there on social media being very upset, saying the F word to the school, to the cheer team, to the softball, to a lot of things. She was mad. She's a kid who didn't make a team. This is going to be heard by the Supreme Court. The school turned it into a whole thing. Her Snapchat post and the punishment that followed are now the center of a major U.S. Supreme Court case that tests the boundaries of school discipline and the rights of students to free speech. This is the first time that the Supreme Court is going to decide whether the rules that apply to kids when they're in school also apply to their speech when they are used outside of school. The court is famous for a 1969 decision said that students don't surrender their First Amendment rights at the schoolhouse gate, but that educators could limit speech on school property when it's materially disruptive to trying to educate people. What's so interesting about this entire story that I just shared with you is the Supreme Court is willing to hear this and not what we had a few months ago. I know that a lot of people said that former President Donald Trump was a crazy person, that he was making up a bunch of the election lies, that everything was a lie. And actually, honestly, some of the lawyers who were helping him now seem to have said some things that make no sense. But essentially a court case that came up from a girl getting angry on social media at her school is now going to be a court case heard by the Supreme Court. And they couldn't just hear one of those cases a few months ago, no matter how much validity was within them. They couldn't just go the distance and hear one and have it, out there for everyone to see and witness so that we could all digest everything that was being accused in other court systems that weren't allowing it to rise to the level of Supreme Court. We couldn't go down that road a few months ago, but when it's a teen and she's upset on Snapchat, the Supreme Court's got time for it. I'm confused as to whether or not it really makes sense and this, I'm sure that the outcome of this will be that the students' free speech is something it's a protected right. I'm expecting that to be the outcome. And yet you can go into something like this and know that for the greater good, for the education of society, it makes sense to hear a case that maybe legal experts say doesn't have a lot of validity. That was my argument months ago. That's going to be my argument today after seeing this story, that no matter how legally relevant the argument was, society as a whole was tremendously interested in the outcome and needed to hear that on that scale, needed to hear it in front of the Supreme Court. That's not aiding and that's not supporting any level of thinking that the election was fraudulent. That's just acknowledging the Supreme Court has a unique ability to influence our understanding of things as a society, much like it's going to do with the teen who got mad on Snapchat when she didn't make her cheerleading squad. What is this world? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to take a break. I need a second to digest that even more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show, where we reach across the aisle and occasionally poke someone in the eye.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. I can't help but go back to some audio that I find tremendously interesting from old Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden will have an interview this weekend. The Final Four, very exciting, happening tomorrow. Maybe as exciting the Sunday interview with Hunter Biden. He's asked about whether or not that laptop could be his, and his answer makes absolutely no sense to anyone but Hunter Biden.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you know
I really don't know what the answer is.
You don't know yes or no if the laptop
I don't have
was
any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. There could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
Look, now my first thought was what other things could it have been? My producer Phil, though, genius first thought, if Hunter Biden is capable of losing a laptop, which is usually a high-value item to a lot of us without any idea if he lost it, if it's his or not, the next question should have been, did you lose a laptop, Hunter? Do you remember if you lost it? I could have lost one. I might have. But what else could he lose? Could he lose a car? Could he lose a home? What other high-value things could he lose? Could he lose, his wallet and be like, I don't know, that could be, might not be my wallet. Hunter, it's got your license in it. Yeah, it sounds like it's mine then, but it might be a Russian operative who put a fake ID in there. It's true. I would love it if we could, in the regular world, answer difficult questions this way. If you were to get into a fight in the near future with a significant other, if my wife has to question me about, getting one too many sugary drinks or other, she's trying to keep me healthier than I want to be, and I could just answer it by saying could have been. Is that Pepsi that I'm drinking maybe a healthy drink disguised as a Pepsi? Could be. Could I have lost the Pepsi at some other point and now it's been replaced by something that you are okay with? This is true. I wish that that's how we could all go about life. It'd be great. You show up late for work. Why are you late? Well, there's a lot of reasons that I could be late. Am I even late? I don't know. I'm not sure. Did I lose my car? As Hunter Biden might be capable of losing a car and not even being aware of it. In more, no, this actually doesn't make any more sense. I was going to say in news that makes more sense to the world, but it doesn't. Shaq is giving away Frosted Flakes online. Shaq has a new cereal giveaway. He's got an autograph on the old Frosted Flakes, and apparently he's a spokesperson for them, which totally makes sense. That's fine. If I think of Frosted Flakes, I immediately picture Shaquille O'Neal as the guy who's probably hawking them. It's a crispy new product in their family. Cinnamon basketballs are within the Frosted Flakes, so there you go. Partnership with good old Shaq. I love Shaq, by the way. I'm not anti-Shaq. I don't want this to sound, I might be a little anti-Hunter Biden, but I'm not anti-Shaq. I just think it's a funny connection of human being plus food product. He does look like the embodiment of Tony the Tiger. Like, Tony the Tiger always struck me as a bigger dude. And so is Shaq the real life version of Tony the Tiger? Maybe he is. If he puts on a tiger costume, he's probably very convincing. Hotels.com is offering people free money. 10 winners will receive what they're calling a tax write-off for Americans who stayed home and didn't go places in the year that was 2020. $2,741. Weird number to come up with. $2,000 is a actual cash prize. Or no, excuse me, that's a gift card for Hotels.com specifically. And then $741 is kind of a cash prize. It's a Visa e-gift card as well. The prize does not expire, so winners have however long they want to utilize the $2,000 in Hotel.com free stays. It's giving it to just 10 people, as I said, and they'll spend it on any kind of future travel. The form asks entrants how many pounds of sourdough they ate, how many takeout boxes they accumulated, and the number of clothing items they tie-dyed or never wore at all as some of the questions you'd answer to potentially win some free money from the good old Hotels.com. Obviously, a lot of people did not travel all that. It's a weird thing to call it a tax write-off, though, because I still feel like we're in this weird world where you get free money from the government and it just doesn't count. That feels like the case. And if you look at the infrastructure bill now, which is $2+ trillion for I don't know what reason, it just seems to be that most people are like, well, the government, their money, it's not the same as everybody else's. We don't have to pay that back someday in the future, near or far. It'll be fine. We can just ignore it and that problem will eventually go away. Let me shift gears to one other piece of audio I find tremendously entertaining, just because I have no idea what this is and why it's a thing that we're going to need or want. A lot of celebrities seem to understand what the name of the product is. And I was even talking to producer Phil about this too off the air, that this is not effective anymore as far as advertising goes, to just repeat the same sentence over and over again, or have people, this random celebrity say one sentence and then the next one say the next sentence. It's annoying. It's not valuable. And at times it does seem like brainwashing is part of what took place here, as opposed to just a paycheck and then a famous person reading a script they don't understand. But this is a commercial that's made the rounds. I think it's been on a lot of televisions, but now on social media too, for the Well Health Safety Seal, which costs money. Businesses would have to pay an organization that's a totally nonprofit, I swear, to buy this seal to confirm that they are, of course, now Well Health Safety Seal approved businesses.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
Look for the Well Health Safety Seal.
I'm Dr. Richard Carmona, the 17th Surgeon General of the United States of America. This is the Well Health Safety Seal from the International Well Building Institute, the global authority on healthy buildings.
The Well Health Safety Seal means that we'll feel better going into restaurants,
theaters, stores, hotels,
stadiums, and all the places that we love.
My favorite part is coming up with this whole commercial.
Everything may look the same, but the Well Health Safety Seal means that your health and safety are top of mind when it comes to
cleaning and sanitizing procedures,
air and water quality management,
emergency preparedness programs,
and health services.
So look for the Well Health Safety Seal outside
and feel more confident going inside.
I get to be on the show again on Monday. I am probably going to try to reach out to some friends and create the Craig Collins Safety Seal, which will be available for a limited time at a ridiculous price for any company out there that wants one. It'll be my face, 2 thumbs up, telling you that this is a restaurant that is Craig Collins approved, because it's now past my standard of approval that I still have to figure out what that is. This is the most ridiculous thing, the Well Health Safety Seal. And I feel bad. I want to say this. I feel worse, the worst for someone who starts to care about it, who starts to not go into one business because it didn't pay for the seal and go into another business because it did pay for the seal. Because as Robert De Niro says, not a lot is going to have changed.
Everything may look the same, but the Well Health Safety Seal means that your health and safety are top of mind when it comes to
cleaning and sanitizing.
I love it. I love it so much. Everything might look the same. Nothing might have changed. But the Craig Collins Safety Seal, when I make it a thing, is available at your business with 2 thumbs way up, telling you that maybe I'll just be holding the cash. Maybe I'll do that picture like Dave Chappelle style. It'll just be me with a fistful of dollars being like, yeah, this is a safety seal now that I got paid to put on this build. It makes no sense. And the fact that so many of these celebrities dive into this sort of thing, they definitely got paid, and they just say, this is the Well Health Safety Seal over and over again. It is attempted brainwashing. That's what this is. This whole commercial, this whole idea to get all of us to care about something that has changed nothing, according to one of the spokespeople for the thing. Oh, man, it's the perfect story. I love it so much. the world can't get any better than us paying for, or hopefully not paying for, a World Health Safety Seal. Enjoy your holiday weekend, everyone. Happy Easter to people out there. Enjoy the Final Four. Go UCLA. Come on, underdog. Win this whole thing.
This is the Chad Benson Show.